Welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast, where we share career stories, strategies, and lessons learned on how industry leaders and influencers have built their personal brands. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everyone. It's Paula Edgar, your host of Branding Room Only, where we talk to professionals about how they have built their brands and their advice for us on how we should build our brands as well. And today, I'm very excited for my guest, Lisa Rangel. Let me tell you about her. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Chameleon Resumes.com, the premier executive resume writing and job landing consulting firm. Lisa's mission in life is to continue to make the world a happier place with one fulfilling, well-paying job change at a time using her four-step META, M-E-T-A, job landing system. She has successful clients in 88 plus countries and has been featured or quoted in over 200 publications. Lisa is a badass, and I'm excited to have this conversation. Lisa, welcome to the Branding Room.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored and thrilled to be here.
I'm excited for this.
Me too.
Tell me, I ask everybody this, what does a personal brand mean to you? Like, how would you define it?
I love that question. And I was probably a slow believer over the years of what a true personal brand is, because I truly believe it's just what you're known for, what you do in the world. And I don't think it should be anything that's contrived or even on some level self-driven, because, I think that we can label ourselves in very superfluous ways that doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone, or it might mean something to us, but it's not relevant to what we're doing in the world or the impact we're making in the world. But if you really look at the impact you're making in the world, that's essentially your brand, what people know you to be, what they know to come to you for. And, doing that self-reflection outward, I think is really where most people's personal brands lies.
Absolutely. Understood. And I agree with you. I love the thinking about it in terms of your impact. I think that, and everybody who's listening knows that I think that it's a little bit of a hand holding between what you say, what they say, and what actually happens.
Right? Somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Exactly. It's the Venn diagram of it all.
Right.
So tell me about your Venn diagram. How would you describe yourself in 3 words or short phrases? Tell me about
and I did your exercise of asking people, right?
Yes.
Which was great. And I came up with tenacious, straight-talking reframer.
Oh, so let me tell you what I love about that. First of all, anybody who gets within 2 minutes of you knows you're straight talking. So there's
All right. Well, thank you. And I'm sorry.
It's why I liked you immediately.
That's awesome.
But I think I think the reframer is a really great one, because it is to the point of, I'm sure that given what you do, and we're going to get into it in a minute, that sometimes people kind of come to you with the, and it's like, let's figure this out. And reframing is a really powerful, I'm actually going to sit with that it's a really great word. I love it. And I love it aligned with what you do. Okay. So tell me, do you have a favorite quote or a motto?
One of my favorite quotes, I literally have it as my high school quote in my yearbook, is, "When all other rights are taken away, the right to rebel is made perfect."
Oh.
It's Thomas Paine. It's literally under my name in my yearbook with my curly hair, because it was a perm. And and it's still, rings true today, right?
Oh, that resonates big time.
And I think it happens. I think it's relevant with people at work, to kind of bring it back to a digestible scale. If you're really feeling not represented at work, or you're not being heard at work, or you're not being recognized at work, then it's time to go, I don't mean rebel as in, burn the building down, but like, you got to go do the things to take care of you, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's just an underlying theme of my life, as well as like what I do for people and what my team and I do for people.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that rebellion piece as almost like, it feels rebellious to even consider yourself sometimes, to consider that where you are, what your experience is not optimal, and that you can go and that you can be someplace else. I think that is counter to so many places that tell you to comply. and to, be glad for X or what have you. And
Right.
yeah, so.
And many of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but
Mhm.
I think a lot of people can be somewhat people pleasing, and with good intentions, and if that's not reciprocated or received, or given back or appreciated, to then say, okay, somebody doesn't like me, I can deal with that, but now I gotta go take care of myself. That's a hard process for a lot of people to
Yes.
accept that somebody is not receiving their good intentions
Yeah.
and now go advocate for themselves. So that you're right. That's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, because we would rather be accepted where we are and make it work.
Yeah.
And I
Well, go
think
out and
that's
rock the
human
boat, people.
nature.
Rock every boat. Rock
That's
all.
it. Go rock all the boats. Get your life jacket on. Let's go.
Speaking of rocking the boat, do you have a hype song, a song that you, when they're going to get full Lisa is playing in your head, or if you're having the terrible day that you're going to play to get yourself back up? Like, it could be the same song or a different song. What's your hype song?
Well, I mean, in general, I'm a 70s disco girl, so there's many, many choices in that genre, but I
True.
think in somewhat of a stereotypical fashion, one of my biggest consistent hype songs is Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Yes, I would say he's probably
It's a
got.
bit of a cliche, and I'm okay with
That's
that.
probably the number one song that my guests have said. It is.
Yeah.
It's such a good. When I ran, that the two times that I ran, y'all,
Hmm.
it was definitely like I love the hype up of it. It's like it was gonna get you there. So it is a good hype song.
Well, even the one line, like you have this one time of the opportunity, like shoot your shot.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I kind of do that with almost everything, which is probably somewhat like an undue pressure to put under myself on some level. But I view everything as an opportunity, and you show up professionally, do your best, and then just see where it goes.
yeah. Well, shout out to the prophet Eminem.
That's it.
Um, so tell me about how Lisa became Lisa. Where did you grow up, and how do you think that shaped you?
I grew up in Union City, New Jersey. Went to high
Jersey
school in
girl.
Jersey City,
Mhm.
and I come from two high school grad, didn't go to college parents. Government workers. In terms of my immediate family, I'm the first one and only one to go to college, and then extended family, first one to go away to college, and I come from a family of teachers,
Mhm.
and government workers, and so going to an Ivy League school was different, and going into this, into entrepreneurship at some point, and sales was like completely not in the MO of what my family expected from me. I mean, they were always incredibly supportive and believed in me, but they just never understood what the hell I was doing. And and I'd get comments from my mom like, are you going to get a job yet? I'm like, Mom, I do have a job, in like my second year of business, and because she just wanted stability for me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so, but I saw the value of relationships. I saw the value of taking care of people. My mom was the secretary at the board of ed in the town I grew up in, and everyone loved her,
Mhm.
and she, when my first child was born, just to give you an idea, I got 160 presents for
Oh
my
wow. Oh
my
wow.
second kid didn't get as many, but like, so I saw the value of like relationships and connecting and taking care of people, and she just does it. She doesn't do it for anything in return, but like I saw how people take care of each other, right? So, and my dad, he was a postal worker in the end, and before he passed away and retired and passed away, and he was super smart, graduated high school at 16, and was underemployed his whole life. And it was because he was fearful of interviewing. So the irony of what I do,
Oh.
but I lived firsthand being underemployed and being frustrated by not using all your skills in some way, even if they're not maxed out every day of your life,
Mhm.
what it can do to you, and both the mental and the financial ramifications of that. So the push and pull, right, of growing up, and but that's they I have a lot of empathy
Mhm.
for people who don't believe in themselves,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I really try to help them bring it out, because I know what it's like when you don't believe in yourself.
Well, clearly, because right and I asked this question because there's always a line, whether or
Mhm.
not we can. There's always something to the what, but I'm sitting with the thinking about lost opportunity and what that means for how you do what you do with
Mhm.
Chameleon Resumes, right? Because you're not coming from a place from I'm on Mount High, and this is right. It is more like I understand from both my perspective and perspectives that I've seen and lived with of what it means when you don't actually know how to shine a light on what you can do and take maybe some risk and show folks what they can do. So
Right.
I love that. Tell me about the catalyst of starting Chameleon Resumes. What was that?
So I went to the hotel school at Cornell, although I
Hmm.
started as an engineer, and I think I stayed in that school for 2.6 seconds and transferred to the hotel school. And I graduated. My first job was working for a Four Seasons property out in San Francisco. My second job was working at a Pebble Beach property out in California. And my boss at Pebble Beach, I had told her I wanted to come back to New York, New Jersey, to be around my family. And she just said to me out of the blue, she's like, "You would be a great recruiter." She could
Mm.
have told me to be a Hare Krishna. Like I love this woman. I would have worshipped the ground I worshiped the ground she walked on. So the fact that she told me to do that, strangely enough, I just came back to New York and I started looking for recruiter jobs, even though I honestly didn't even know what it was, if I'm being honest. So
Okay.
I did get hired, and I remember wanting to just help people get jobs.
Hmm.
And I was quickly reprimanded by a very senior, battle axy New York recruiter. People, companies pay us to find talent. We don't find people jobs. I'm like, oh, okay. And so, which is really how recruiting works, third
Sure.
party recruiting works. So my old boss was right. I was a really good recruiter. I wound up going on to recruiting for 13 years, rose through the ranks, running a few different offices. I started in legal for a little bit, but I mainly did financial recruiting and went on to oversee a bunch of different disciplines before I left. And the company I worked for, the last company I worked for, our second biggest client was Bear Stearns.
Mm.
And during 2008, so we lost,
Fun.
and they should have laid me off in 2008, but they laid me off in March of 2009. March of 2009, everybody needed a job.
Yeah.
And through my time recruiting, I became really good at doing resumes because I saw that they were the catalyst for a company wanting to see my candidate.
Yeah.
And clearly the candidate had to be qualified, but I would do like quick little fixes and get the interview because that interview would lead to them getting hired. And that's how I made my money. So
Right.
I quickly learned the value of a very good resume speaking to what the company wants to see. So when I was laid off in 2009, all that work I did for free as a recruiter, I just started charging. And I wasn't sure. I was burnt out on recruiting. I didn't really want to go back to it, but I was the breadwinner, so you can't just give up what you know how to do and get paid pretty well for it. But I figured I would interview and write resumes to see what happens. And
Hmm.
I wound up doing two recruiting contract roles at the same time of writing a bunch of resumes. And then I saw I can make this a business. And about 3 years into it, I'd say the first 2 years I called it my productive unemployment. But I realized I can make it a business. And I started buying systems and structuring things and creating operations and hiring people and it started to scale. And although my team's been with me, my teammates that work with clients have been with me, anywhere from like 7 to 15 years, and
Mm.
they're amazing. And I'm blessed every day to work with them and do what we do for clients. But it started off as just something I was really good at.
Yeah.
And I just was able to turn it into a business. I'm grateful every day that I get to wake up and do this.
I think that that is the key. When people talk to me about what is entrepreneurship? It's taking something that you either love and or you're good at,
Right.
and finding where the monetization is. As I was listening to you, I had a couple of different thoughts. One, I want to highlight something because I think it's important. I talk about this all the time with our good friend Sonia,
Yes.
which is
This is
this.
how we met each other. So yay,
Exactly.
Sonia.
Right. You all
Best
know this.
networker ever.
Exactly. She is this is the Sonia Song, we are the club.
Yeah.
But it's important for people to know, and there's such a misbranding of recruiting, and that people think that recruiters work for individuals and they work for organizations who hire them to find individuals. So there is still a need for connection, but you cannot call a recruiter and say, "Get me a job."
No,
Right?
that's not how it works. I
Mike,
mean,
you call
if
a
you are the talent that that company wants,
right,
the
right.
illusion
Mhm.
is that that recruiter is placing you into a job and they're finding you a job. But
Right.
make no mistake, they are delivering a product to their client company that's paying them 20 to 35% of your salary.
Exactly.
So,
Important distinction, important one
yeah,
that
yeah.
I think that people just don't
And
realize.
not everyone gets hired that way. That's a low probability of hire for most people. So that's why you always got to maintain your brand and your network for the other, 70% of how hires happen. So
Well, wonderful pivot to my next question, which is
there you
this,
go.
because you, Lisa, you have said that you should be building your brand before you need it, right? And so, what do you think there are some of the steps that professionals should be doing to build their brand, even if they love their current role? What should
Yeah. Well, Sonia has a great saying too. Be ready so you don't have to get ready. That's
they?
her way of putting it.
Yeah.
But it's the whole. I mean, it's not an original concept, despite
Mhm.
the phrase maybe being different.
Yeah.
It's that whole what's his name, Harvey McKay. Build your well before you need it.
Right.
That's
Right.
like a 1990s book or something like that, right? But
Mhm.
like it's about being prepared, and I believe that, job security does not rest with any one employer
Mhm.
anymore for a long time. That age of the gold watch and retiring has been long gone now, right? Decades. But job security still exists,
Mhm.
but it resides in each of us to be able to maintain our income.
Yep.
And how fast can we do that and not have a gap? So the only way to do that is keep our network warm,
Mhm.
have our having people abreast of what we've done lately.
Mhm.
We'll
Mhm.
insert your channel, your inner Janet Jackson there. Like, what have you done lately, and how is it relevant
Uh-huh.
to what you've been doing? And if your brand is being based on seniority as a senior executive,
Mhm.
that's dangerous because, none of us are qualified to do anything based on seniority. Frankly, the only thing, all 50-year-olds have in common and up is that we have, 30 years of experience. But 30
Mhm.
years of experience doesn't qualify anybody for anything.
Not, especially not anymore.
Not anymore. No. And you know what? We all know people with
Mhm.
30 years
Mhm.
of experience who are amazing. And we know
Yeah.
people with 5 years experience who are killing it.
Yeah.
And we know people with 30 years of experience who are like, please don't come to work today. And we know people with 5 years of experience who are like, how'd you get up out of bed today? Right. So
Right.
the at any age,
Mhm.
the years of experience is irrelevant.
Right. Right.
What it's the achievements and the outcome and the impact at any level, at any
Mhm.
position. I mean, I mainly deal with executives. I believe so do you, but it's really at all levels.
Yeah.
Are you coming across as an achievement driven person?
I think it's that, and when you just mentioned about the your so longevity in a role not being determined of you being able to port to someplace else because
Right.
right, I think about complacency. I think about the people who are really comfortable, and what I love about sort of shakeups that happen, whether it be 2008, whether it be COVID, whether it be the government, is those shakeups shake out the people who have been mastering branding throughout the process
Hmm. Yeah.
because they are the ones who are easy can access their network. Hey, this thing happened to me. Look, what do you know? Keep your ears open. Can I talk to this person? But and this happened. My audience knows I'm a lawyer. I do a lot of stuff with lawyers, but I work across industry. But what I found, particularly for people who are in house, is that they get really comfortable. Like, oh, well, since I live here on this in house couch, I don't need to tell people what I'm doing, talk and think about how I'm upskilling, even show my value proposition in multiple ways. And it is a killer because there is no job security.
No, there isn't. I mean, there isn't for anyone.
Right.
And even those of us in business, the way
Yep.
we did it 10 years ago is, I mean, I could honestly say I do it completely differently
Yeah.
today, even though maybe from the outside it looks similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
The inner workings of the business is a totally different business than it was even 10 years ago or 2 years ago. So, the minute you get comfortable, it's when you're like, oh, it changes, So, I did a system conversion. It took almost 4 years.
Mhm.
And within like 3 months of it, I was like, great again. Like I couldn't even believe it. I was like, really? I can't even get a couple quarters out of this, like, so it's just a constant reinvention, which
Mm-hmm.
is exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, which I will wholly own is ridiculous that we have to keep doing it, but we do,
Yeah,
you
we have
know?
to. And I think personal branding is like the epitome of growth mindset. It's always what's the next thing. It's why my business tagline is engage your hustle. What is next? What's coming next? It
Yeah,
just means you have to remember that it's always iterating. And that when you again, I think you can sit in some a little bit of the luxury of what when you built it, but you
right.
can't stay so comfortable that you don't think that you have to. I mean, what we're seeing now with AI is like, well, holy I had a team of 17 people who were doing that before. And now, right,
Now,
I
right,
just press a button again. And I think this is really important in terms of the thinking of what we both do. It doesn't take away the need for professionals like us to be able to guide things. It just makes it a little bit faster, I think, in some of the processes, but it doesn't take it
right.
away because it's still a skill set to help people see their value. It's still a skill set to
Yes,
help people to promote at their value. And there's never not going to be a need for that. And especially because, in my opinion, so many people have deprioritized it for such a long time until they
right.
need it, and then it's too late, and then you got to. But it's not too late. It's never too late. But
It's never too late.
yeah,
I
it's later
mean,
than I would want it to be, but it's not too late.
right. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting you brought up like AI and
Mhm.
ChatGPT and all that too,
Mhm. Yeah.
because, it's an amazing tool. And,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
usually get a question like, aren't you worried? I'm like, no, I said, I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
frankly, it's made business better, frankly, because, when it first came out to the masses, whatever, 2022, December 2022, like and I wasn't the only one who said this, but I was like, it's going to make, great writers more efficient, good
Mhm.
writers better, and crappy writers crappier. Of course,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more of a salty word, but I'm trying to be a little respectful here, and that's what I believe because it's like buying a resume book, right? Or it's like buying like those who steal the resume out of the book aren't getting a whole lot of success with it. But those that use it as a guide and have the judgment of knowing what to apply to them, what to leave because it doesn't apply to them, how to create something different because they have a unique situation, but you use it as inspiration or a guide, maybe that's what it's supposed to be for. Like it's not a cut and paste.
Oh, thank you. Can you just say that
And
one more time? Can you just say one more time? It's not a.
it's not a cut and paste. It's supposed to me, ChatGPT and AI and all these things are
Yeah.
basically like online books that we would buy 20 years ago that showed us how to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's
it.
faster
But
access. It's faster
yeah, it's
access.
faster access and clearly more robust access. And in some places, even it gives you judgment, but that doesn't mean that judgment is right for you.
Right.
And
Right.
more importantly, as this becomes more mainstream,
Everybody will have.
everybody's doing it. So now everybody's got the same judgment.
Oh,
So
yes.
like that's what I don't think people realize. So you really can't farm out,
Yeah.
to non-human brains your brand.
Mhm.
Like
Oh,
you have to ask your people, you have to ask advisors,
yeah.
like you, like me, like you have to ask your network for
Yeah.
their like it's a human thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it couldn't get it right every once in a while with an online brand type of thing, but
Yeah.
it's still not going to be the best.
Yeah. No, you're a true strong brand is authentic. It's well thought
And
out.
it
It's
touches
right.
emotion.
Exactly. And when I think about some of the content that I see, even even when people are relaying what they have received in person from I can tell when they've done no editing of it at all. Right.
Hmm.
I can tell when they've used the exact same emojis that just some things where I'm like, okay, it also shows laziness, right? And it
Hmm.
shows a lack of innovation because even if you're using a tool that is innovative, you and how you come to it and what you bring from it can show how you are far and beyond
Right.
everybody else or how you are just the same and not differentiated at all. And so it's important to think of a tool as a tool. It's never going to replace the thing. It'll help you, but it cannot replace the thing. And I cannot say this enough that I agree with you 100%. I feel really strong in that I feel even more needed now than I did before because everybody's got a green check mark or something. And it's like, okay, please stop it. Anyway, now that we've gone off on that tangent, but I'm glad that we did. I'm glad that we did. I'm glad we did. Talk to me about this. And I think especially now, and I think, people listen to podcasts at whatever time during the year, so I don't want to assume that it'll be just now.
Yeah.
Just in period, it's thinking about how there's always like shifts that happen in, society and government, et cetera, and that those shifts can cause the market to do what it does, and then there are layoffs or people leave for whatever reason. Why do you think it is important to be able to be set up to land the next thing quickly? Tell me about that.
I think it's important to always be set up
Mm-hmm.
for either capitalizing on opportunity. It doesn't always have to be bad, right? It's not always, anticipating calamity. It's also, there might be opportunity that shows up in your lap, and now you're not scrambling
Mm-hmm.
to get everything ready, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't say in your brand that you are prepared and then somebody calls you for an opening. You're like, oh, let me get that to you in 3 weeks. Like actions aren't meeting
Yeah.
the words, right? So if you pride yourself on being ready, then that should also apply to yourself, right? But, if we've learned anything from the last 5, 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had to operate without a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had more stuff happen in the last 5 years that was just like unprecedented than the 50 before it, practically, right? So if we've learned anything, is that anything can change on a dime and it can change really quickly. But on the flip side, is as humbly as I can say this and as compassionately as I mean it, despite it coming across a little heartless, there is ethical opportunity in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Absolutely.
ethical opportunity in every situation that we're faced. And, people who have these appearances of these upward trajectory, upwardly linear careers, believe me, they have downs, they have squiggles. The line is not this, it's this, right?
Right. Right.
And they are reframing
There it is again.
what is before them, looking for where they can capitalize on the opportunity to
Yeah.
either solve the problem that exists or capitalize on the opportunity that is existing now because of it, right? So we have to learn how to be reframers if we're going to be happy and if we're going to stay on top of our game.
Mm-hmm. So
And, because there is always something to be really negative about.
facts,
Like, amen,
facts,
right? Like, I
facts,
mean,
all
and I
facts.
say that without any like preachy pontification, like Pollyanna crap. Like,
Yeah.
it takes, I wake up in the morning and I see negative. I'm not one of these like bright and shiny, oh my God, it's the sun's out morning people. Not at all. And I have to do work in the morning to get myself right minded. And, you know, I am grateful for opportunities that I have before me in the day. I'm grateful that I have a gift that allows me to help people see what they can't see. I'm grateful for the people that help me see what I can't see, and I do reach out for help for when I need it, right? But like we have to always look to see where the opportunity lies to help, and there's no shame in making money with that as long as it is ethically done and delivered upon accordingly, right? So like there's no shame in that, and always over deliver, right? So I think I kind of even forgot the question. I'm totally sorry.
No, I
But
mean
I feel like,
you answered it plus, which I love, and I think you made a lot of good points. And I just want to side note on this. Thank you for sharing that you have to have a gratitude practice to get to where you need to
yeah,
work the day. Because I do think that so many people are like, okay, well, you can talk about, over here about this because you're always this way, or you have the success. Sometimes you got to build yourself up, and I think that muscle is probably the most important muscle, especially as we are in uncertainty. And to your point about chaos, in that, yes, there is something we can find that we do not like. I'm sure as soon as we turn our phone on.
right, right, right.
Right. But to be able to say, but guess what? I can grab the day, and figuring out that lens to go do so is such a wonderful skill, but it is a practice. And I
It
love
is
that
a
you said that.
practice and it is a choice.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
And it doesn't come without guilt sometimes,
Mhm.
because I can't say that I know it's a privilege to be able to block certain things out and stay
Yeah.
focused. I
Yeah.
know that's absolutely 100% a privilege.
Mhm.
But I've come to the conclusion, at least in the last year and a half, 2 years, that if I stick to what I know how to do,
Mhm.
it's putting the best, most qualified people in roles
Mhm.
and they're all different kinds of people.
Yep.
So, I can just stay focused and do what I got to do.
Yep.
And all the other stuff, the worrying, and not that I don't worry, but like I worry a lot less than I used to. And the any of the, thinking I do about the world, it's not solving anything. It's not
Right.
helping anything. And it's hours and hours of time that I'm not going to get back.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I've tried to just stay focused and
Yeah.
reframe it and look for where I can be the helper and where the opportunity is.
Okay, well, speaking about helping an opportunity, can you tell us about the four-step meta job landing system and how
Yes.
does it help people get fulfilling and well-paying roles, please?
I love that question. So, when I started the business, I mean, it's called Chameleon Resumes because I focus just on resumes. And then people have asked me, you do so much more. Why don't you change the name? I don't change the name on purpose because it's really what most people think they need to land a job. And
Mm-hmm.
then we educate them on they usually need a lot more. And so the meta job landing system evolved from doing all the everything else. So we not only help with the resume, but the LinkedIn profile now over the years is just as important. Some would even argue more important than the resume
Yes.
in many cases. Cover letters, thank you notes, executive bios, board resumes. We do all that's the M, the marketing documents. And the E is effective job landing tactic training. I came to learn after the first year or two in business that like people would come to me for the resume and then they would need and then I would see their profile was terrible. I was like, damn it, now I got to do their profile. And then they'd give them both and then they didn't know what to do with it. So now I got
Hmm.
to show them what to do with it. And that's the job landing tactic training. And then they'd show up on the interview and I'd realize, oh my God, they don't know how to do an interview. So I got to prep them on the interview. That's our 3-step interview prep process, the T of Meta. And then the last piece is advanced salary negotiation work that we do, where we help them negotiate the package for everything on up to what we're not ERISA lawyers, we're not employment lawyers. So that's,
Yeah.
if it needs that kind of work, we make referrals, but we can help with everything else. So that's the 4 steps and it's evolved. We've been doing it this way now for probably, I think I named it about 5, 6 years ago. And we've been doing those 4 steps, just poorly named, for probably the last 13 out of the 17 years I've been in business. But it evolved because I saw what people needed. And then I was like, well, let me make sure. Because then I never want somebody to buy one piece
Hmm.
when they really need everything. Because
Hmm.
that one piece, they're never going to be happy because they needed everything.
Hmm.
So, I don't ever want to oversell and
Yeah.
I never want to undersell because underselling just to meet someone's budget doesn't help them either. I'd rather them buy zero.
Mm.
And so, we see that most people need all of it and we support all of it.
I mean, I love it because to your point, it's you saw something, you added. You saw something, you added, right? It's what you just mentioned. And it's true. I think hearing about this, the value proposition of being able to have a one-stop shop to support the whole process. And I'm sure I just kind of got a little tingle. Be like, I can imagine the notes at the end, like, Lisa, I got this role and I'm a billionaire. And I remember when I only had a crayon resume and I
Oh
had
my
no
God,
money.
crayon resume. That's awesome. Well, one thing I'm very proud of, right, is we have monthly LinkedIn recommendations from clients who've invested in our services going back almost 11 years
Oh, that's
every
fantastic.
month, and I'm super proud of it. And, you'll see my team's name laced all within them. Like it's definitely not a me thing, it's a team
Yeah.
thing. And I'm super proud of it because, people ask me our success record. It's a question I don't like because I'm not executing the search.
Right. Right.
Like I can't take full credit for those recommendations, to be honest, right? Now, one, my team's helping, but two, more importantly, I can coach, and this, I can
Mhm.
coach, I can write, but if somebody does not execute what they're supposed to do,
Mhm.
there's no success story.
Mhm.
So the success record really lies with each person. And it's
Mhm.
like financial results, right? Past practice doesn't mean future performance and all that stuff. Like, because it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
And, and that's part of that person's brand, right? Like they have to deliver on what they say they're going to deliver on from their part as well. So it's a partnership. And I don't know what made me say that, but yeah. So
No, I love that you did say it because I think that my answer from that on a branding perspective is that you have 100% success record because you got everybody prepared and then they do what they need to do. And therefore,
be 100% make sure you're successfully prepared.
exactly. I mean, and that's truly it. And it's such a also an important part of this is because you are not doing it for them. And I think for me, the challenge was when I was coaching, particularly, it'd be like, people would be like, hey, here's this problem. And I'd be like, all right, well, here's my foot in your back to make sure you get it done. And here's all the resources that you need. And it'd be like, okay, well, we're just sitting here and your foot's on my back, but you're not moving. I'm like, okay, well, then this is not working for you. You need to find somebody who's going to get you moving, because I can tell you all the brilliance and I can help you with all the brilliant things, but you have to be you have the person who does the thing. And the hardest part about COVID and all the challenges that people are experiencing, and it seems like more and more every day, is that I think it makes people, it's harder to feel excited, engaged, and energetic around, even if you have every single resource piled up in front of you, to actually do the thing. And so I tell people all the time, do something little, something very small. If it's just sending an email to somebody, because that then
Yes.
builds on itself. You don't have to do everything at one time. Even if you have it all prepared, do something little to love
No.
on yourself a little bit. And that helps to go, because
And pick the familiar people who are going to be nice to you. Start with like people who love you, and then don't make your first person be someone who has no idea who you are, and it's the dream place you want to work. Like, don't set yourself up for that, right? Like, start like it's 100% agreement. Like, you got to
yeah,
start. You got to give yourself small wins to get the big wins.
yes, exactly that. So we are both entrepreneurs, and in terms of the work that you do, you work with folks who are executives, and I'm sure in the entrepreneur space, but also in different sectors as well. What do you think are the biggest differences between branding yourself if you are your own boss versus branding yourself if you have somebody who you have to to report up to as an executive?
There's some differences, but there isn't, right? Because as entrepreneurs, our bosses are clients and prospective clients, right? Like, we can't piss people off. There's taking a stand and taking you're your brand, and then there's just outright pissing people off, right? You can't do that, right?
Right.
So the same thing with the boss, right?
Mhm.
You still have to. I think everyone has to live within certain, decorum and guidelines of things, right? We all know, and we've see whether it's somebody's an entrepreneur or freelancer or an employee, we all seen on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever, where we're like, that's a little too far. So like,
Yes.
so I don't think that there's a lot that's different. I think
Mhm.
you have to, imagine what's the worst case scenario of anything you might put out there.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
have to be okay with it. And if you're not, then don't do it.
Right. I
You
think
know?
that the hard part for me when I think about this is that, I always say I am my brand and I am my business. And so they're intertwined, so that there may be some things that you see and don't love about me, and that might impact you giving me business. But for the most part, what I do, what I've delivered, and how I show up is aligned with what I want in terms of
Yeah.
my, when you are working for someone else, you always have to think about the big
Yeah.
entity. And, you're working to make the person above you and the person above them
Right.
look good, right? Right. For them to be able to facilitate the success of the team through whatever your part of it is. So for me, the shift is that there's more people I'm thinking about when there's a framework. Otherwise,
Right.
it's me and maybe in mine in terms of the people who work with me.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It's mostly similar. It's just about a perspective shifting, and
Yeah, it's a perspective shifting. You're still looking at what the end role is, end result is supposed to be, and how you get there.
yeah.
An interesting point though. I have a lot of resume writing friends that refer us people who were entrepreneurs and want to go back to being an executive, and
Mm.
for various reasons, both good
Yeah.
and bad.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, sold it. What don't tried it, doesn't like it, want to get back to working for somebody else, want something bigger than them, all kinds of reasons,
Yeah.
and that shift
Mhm.
is helping, companies want to hire entrepreneurial minded people. They don't want to hire entrepreneurs.
Facts.
It's my experience as a recruiter and on this side of the coin. And
Yeah.
so helping entrepreneurs market themselves in such a way that does not intimidate
Mhm.
that prospective employer, not dumb themselves down, not,
Right.
but you have to make yourself digestible
Yes.
to
Yes.
people,
Yes.
because if they feel that you are going to upstage them, not be happy with how you're being managed,
Yeah.
you can leave because you've shown that you can work on your own. And now they
Yes.
just gave you all the secrets to so that there's this extra burden.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, you have to be able to make your bosses look good.
Yeah.
in a corporate setting, whether, as an executive, as a middle manager, and as a staff level person, you always have to look like you are. I mean, that nobody gets hired
Hmm.
at a charity, but everyone's getting hired because they're hoping their job's going to be easier for the
Right.
person making the hire. So how do you convey yourself in that way? And that's how you have to put your brand out to make sure that they're not upstaged, but at the same time, you're not downplaying too much.
Yeah, that's probably it's that by itself is probably its own podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because when I was pivoting between side gig and still having a job,
Hmm.
I remember one of my aunts was like, the reason why you're always uncomfortable, Paula, is because you're not supposed to have a boss. And I was
Yeah,
like, well, I don't know what you mean. Like, I like insurance. I like to have stability, but
right, right, right.
like, yeah, but you like it up to here.
Up to
And
there.
it's just true. And I do think that it's a reframing, which I just feel like is the theme of this,
Yeah.
of how you add value and how you're able to shift. But I loved your point about it's not about dimming your light. It's probably about refracting it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I mean,
like, yeah,
I mean, it's it's the same concept with like dating or like anything out, making friends. Like you have to show up and see what is available before you start letting parts of yourself be revealed.
yeah, yes,
Like, just to make
yeah.
sure it's a match, right? Like, and it's like,
Mhm.
so I think that that's sometimes, I'm, yes, we want people to accept us as we are, but if we show up with like, here's the 15 things I am, like I don't think most people can handle that, right? So you got to
Yeah.
give people things in digestion in small doses and see that it's the right place for you from a safety standpoint, like all of it. And interviewing is no different. Putting
Mm,
your brand out there is no different. You have to be able to stomach any of the pushback. So you
yeah.
have to make sure you're in the right frame of mind to do it.
So this is a great pivot to something that I think about often. I actually talk with Sonia about this often as well, which is around mistakes you see when it comes to people
Mm.
and their brand and their brands. And I see a lot, or I hear about a lot when it comes to they look great on paper or they look great on LinkedIn, but they show up in an interview process and it's like, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you see that can take somebody who looks great in terms of a profile that can be accessed without them being a part of it to when they actually show up to show the thing, whether that's an interview or
Right, right.
but what are some of the mistakes that you see folks doing
I
that?
mean, some of the mistakes that I see people make, and frankly, it was probably part of the reason why it's making taken me to be a slow burn as to like thinking personal branding is good and accept and a thing for us to do is that sometimes I think people are so contrived and they're trying to come up with something really cute and then I'm like, that is completely subjective and more importantly, where are the goods?
Hmm.
Like you came
Hmm.
up with a great tagline, but where are the goods that support that?
Yeah.
And they're trying too hard
Hmm.
and it's not rooted in a real viewing of what people think they do and stand for. And
Yeah.
so, when there's a disconnect between the self-image and the external image, I
Yeah.
think that can be a mistake. Some small mistakes that I don't think are catastrophic, but are that help that make people frustrated is they focus too much on the likes and the comments. They comment only on like the top voices, like on LinkedIn or whatever, channel equivalent they're on, and they're not just engaging people. I mean, in
Mhm.
the end, I'm primarily on LinkedIn. I don't really use a lot of other things, but
Uh-huh.
I view LinkedIn as one big room of people to meet,
Yeah.
and I conduct myself accordingly.
Mhm.
And I don't I talk to people in messaging on comments the way I would talk to them in person to the best of my ability.
Right.
I try not to phone it in. I don't hit the pre-populated answers. Like even
Speaking
if
of,
it's a short
yeah.
answer, I'll type it out and hit like two exclamation points so people know I typed it out. Like I mean, and I'm probably overthinking it and nobody cares, but like I just think that you have to talk to people like people, and we
Mhm.
can't become a bunch of bots that are sending predetermined messages to each other and think that we're going to get something out of that.
It's so true. It's so.
So like, comment on somebody's stuff, but then reach out to them and say that was great. Like,
Mhm.
what are you up to? Would you be up to a chat? Like,
Yeah.
and just talk to people like people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake that some people make. They think it's some contrived, keywordy thing and magic set of keywords and a magic number of likes and post it at 7 in the morning. And it's like, just stop with all the nonsense and talk to people and
Yeah,
help people. And
I
that's
think
it. Like, it sounds overly simplified, but it really isn't that much more than that.
I think what I'm hearing from you is to find the authenticity in what you do and be
Yeah.
and show it. And I think you're right because my pet peeve, which I know two people who are going to message me after they hear this because they're going to be like, enough already with you and this pet peeve. But I don't care. It's my podcast and I can do it.
It's your podcast. I have to if I want
Exactly.
to.
So here's my pet peeve. You should never be surprised and be searching for an answer when somebody says, "Tell me about yourself."
Yeah.
Like if you don't know yourself, you should not be interviewing. If you don't know who you are and how you add value, you should not be talking amongst people because they want to know about you the same way you want to know about them.
Right.
And so if you are there and you are like, "Hello, I'm Paula, and this is what I do," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I just talked to a robot. That was awesome, but it was a robot." Folks want to hear, what excites you, what thing that you read. They want to know more about you. And every time I've talked to somebody who has been like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was doing so well in this process, and then I bombed the interview," it's because they were saying what they thought the person wanted them to
Yeah.
hear.
Instead of
Versus
something authentic from here, I can't put the
exactly,
chest up high enough,
exactly,
but up here.
exactly. Bring it from the chat. So,
You
so,
have to,
so
well,
yeah,
and that is the mistake. You
yeah.
said it in the best way. I kind of went on a little long-winded about it, but it's because you're trying to do what you think people want,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah,
you got to do what you want to do.
100%.
And when you do what you want to do,
Hmm.
that's the authenticity.
Hmm.
And that's where you attract your like-minded or people who appreciate you, even if you're not like-minded, and repel the people that are not your people.
Hmm. Repel, I love it.
No, in marketing, that you're either attracting or repelling. Like, it's
Yes.
actually a thing.
Yeah.
You don't want everyone.
Yeah. You want your
You
people.
want your people.
Mhm,
And that
mhm.
doesn't mean everybody thinks like you,
Right.
but
Right.
people appreciate what you do.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
disagree with, like decorum, which I know is a lost art. But
Sure is.
like, but repelling is part of this process with branding,
Yeah.
because then you're not engaging with people who are not going to get you, and you're not going to get them, and it's not going to go anywhere.
Correct. And you should never be looking for everybody to be your person or everybody
No.
like you because if that's the case, then there's somebody being authentic because not everybody's not for
Yeah.
everybody. And that's why we have finding your unique value proposition, finding your community and engaging. It can expand, but you should never want it to
Right.
be everybody.
Which is another mistake, not being specific in your brand.
Mhm.
When people try to be all things to everyone because they don't want to alienate, what if that's an opportunity? I don't want to close it off. I get the logic behind being broad.
Yeah.
When you're broad, you appeal to no one. When
Yeah.
you're specific,
Mhm.
you appeal to obviously the people that are interested in what you're being specific about. But what also happens, people see strength
Mhm.
in your specificity,
Mhm.
and they'll try to apply your strength to what they have available, even if it's not necessarily in alignment. But when you are broad, they don't want any of that wishy-washy crap. So they don't ask you anything.
Mhm. Mhm. I love
And
that.
and you're also then up against other people who are being specific. So you're always going to look
Mhm.
less.
Yes. Oof.
And so,
Good.
take the stand and take a risk.
Mhm.
It's going to most likely always pay off,
Mhm.
because even if it doesn't go well, there'll be a lesson.
Yeah.
And that is always worth it. And then that'll help you pick the lane you should be in.
Right. And it'll help people define with you, not for you, with you,
Yeah.
where you can specify when it didn't work. You can right, you
Right.
understand from the feedback, like, oh, maybe it's not this. I need to iterate a little bit more here.
Yeah.
So I already knew I was like, I can talk to Lisa for days, but I'm
I
trying to
can
get
talk to you for hours. You're awesome.
so I want to ask you this because I want to have this really be helpful for somebody
Yeah.
who might be sitting there. So if there's an executive who is sitting out there who does not like their role, that role is not it for them, but they like it enough that they can sit for a while. Right?
Yeah. Which
What are
is
some of
okay.
the things that they should be doing right now
So
to
the first thing, if you are currently working in a job that you're not happy with, I would
Mhm.
say take a minute and have gratitude for it,
Mhm.
because they are going to essentially pay you while you look for a job.
Mhm.
So because you can also be looking for a job without a job, and that's harder, right? And so I would come from a place of gratitude, because that will help you not feel like you are jumping ship, but going to your next opportunity. And you'll be able to, you don't want to go from the frying pan into the fire. And if you are ungrateful or angry all the time,
Mhm.
you're going to just look at the next thing as an escape versus where you're going to.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
need to be able to look at where you're going to in an objective way to make sure it's the right thing.
Ah, love that. I
So
love it.
I would start with that. And then, secondly, get your documents ready based on what you want to do next. And what I find at the executive level is we've done a lot of things and we're all very good at a lot of things. But there's probably a list of things that, even though we're great at them and might have even a great story about it, that we probably never want to do again. And so have your documents not be this kitchen sink of everything you've ever done, because you're going to get calls then for the thing you don't want to do anymore because you
Oh,
have it
that's such a good
prominently
point.
displayed and you're good at it. So people are going to want
Such a
you to
good
keep
point.
doing it.
That's such a
So
good.
when people say I'm getting these job calls that they're not the right job, I'm like, well, you got that like on bullet number 2. So of course they're going to call you for it. So you really need to whittle down what you want to continue doing and have that be your marketing document. Because again, a resume, profile, bio, these are marketing documents. They're not, obituaries of everything you've ever done in your life, right? So zero in on what you want to continue doing, build that brand around that, and then start talking to people. Look at target companies, look at professional associations, college alumni, corporate alumni, conferences that you could travel to that are local, attend them virtually, follow people on hashtags, reach out to them afterwards, even though you didn't get to go.
Yeah.
Always look, people say to me, I don't have the budget to travel. My company's not paying for it. But I'm like, look for how you can do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, we have Zoom, we can have conference calls with people in New Zealand. Like, I mean, look, we have LinkedIn is the best thing that has ever happened to all of us about being able to reach out to people from our desks in our homes or at work. Like, we can reach almost anybody nowadays.
Hmm.
So if you aren't reaching out to enough people or you feel like you don't have people helping you, I hate to say it, you haven't done the work
Hmm.
because it's all there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all there to be tapped. You might need some help doing it, but it's all there to be tapped. And you just have to look at how it can happen
Mhm.
versus the 50 ways it can't happen, because there's always 50 ways it won't work.
That's such a smart perspective. And I want to double click on something because if you don't have the money or you're busy, you can't go to a conference or some other opportunity where you know that would be helpful to you. What I love about hashtags or even following the organization is that you see who the speakers were, you see
Hmm.
some of the topics. Sometimes you can see recaps of what happened.
Yeah,
But let me tell you a quick story. Somebody who just had a baby a couple of weeks ago reached out to me, was like, I saw you were going to be speaking at a conference. I couldn't attend because I had a baby. Attached a picture of the baby. And I was like, oh, I,
oh,
and then said, would you please mind sending me any handouts that you had for the conference? And I was like,
bingo.
100%.
You're
Hit
going
it
to send
on
her
me.
everything.
But right, and I'm sitting here reflecting on it, right? Like
Right,
it's a great brand builder. It's a hustle move, and it is a not saying no to yourself. It's saying, "Where's my yes?
right.
Where's the yes in this?"
Looking for how it can work.
I love that.
Reframing it, right? Like, she could have
Good.
easily said, I had a
Mhm.
baby. There's no way I'm
Yeah.
going to that conference. I'm not even going to
Right.
reach out. I'll just deal with it when I'm done
Right.
with
Right.
maternity leave. Like, and that would have been like, hell yeah, you deserve the rest, right? Like,
Right.
she would have gotten
Exactly.
like props for that.
Go
And
lie down.
it would be okay.
Yes, it
But
would.
instead, she looked at where she can make it happen.
I love that. And
And
sent the picture
that's,
of that cute baby too. I was like, oh my gosh.
yeah. So you got the information and a cute baby. Win win.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So as we're going to end, I want to ask you a few questions. One
Yeah.
is this. Look, we've given a lot of advice during this conversation, but is there one piece of advice that you would want to give folks thinking about best piece of career advice or branding advice that you've ever received?
Hmm. A mantra I've always lived by since my restaurant days, my hotel restaurant days before I recruited even, was do the job you want, then you get it. Don't wait to be bestowed the
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
because people need to see that, you train people, you came up with ideas, you have a strategy,
Mhm.
you reduced costs
Yeah.
before they give you the job that's responsible for training people, coming up with a strategy, and that you reduce costs. So do the job you want, look the part, branding, look the part you want, do the job you want, then you get it.
Yep. Don't just do the minimum.
Yeah.
never get anywhere by just doing the minimum. Welcome
No.
to my TED Talk to my kids every day. You never, ever just, the minimum is not it. And it's always,
And tell people about it. You can't depend on people advocating for you. If you're not advocating for you, you can't be mad if somebody else doesn't do it.
preach, strategic self-promotion. All right.
Yeah.
So everybody on my podcast answers these two questions. What, Lisa, is something that you will never compromise on when it comes to your brand?
Um, just I mean, there's so many traits, right? Like trust and integrity. Like I have to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I won't sell things that I don't feel right about. I won't take on clients I can't help.
Mhm.
I say what I can't do. I don't know. I think it's just integrity. And I think many other things like trust and honesty and blah, 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 all kind of gets wrapped up into that. And you can say honesty wraps up into, whatever, but it's
Yeah.
just like, I guess I got to sleep at night.
Yeah. I love that.
You
And it
know,
shows.
I don't want it eating at me, and I just want to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. So what is your magic? So branding room only is a play on the term standing room only because
Yeah,
I'm clever. So,
you are.
so what is something that people would be in a room with no seats, like standing room only, to experience about you?
Getting people to see possibilities. I know that that's what I love to do. It's honestly, I get people who are angry every once in a while because when you tell people what's possible and they don't believe in themselves, it's better to be angry at somebody like me telling them what's possible than actually try to live it up.
Mm.
So I would say I try to help people see what's possible.
Lisa, I knew that our conversation was going to go by too quickly, and you will have an open invitation to come and talk to me whenever you want
Same, and you're going to
about
come to
whatever
mine
you want. Exactly,
soon.
exactly. I'm excited for all of our conversations. Tell folks how they can find out more about you and your work.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow, reach out, chameleonresumes.com. I have free tools. I have tons of videos that are for free and templates and all that type of stuff. And I hold a monthly executive career chat at executivecareerchat.com, of which Paul is going to be a guest. And that's, that's probably the best way to get me.
Fantastic. Everybody, send this to that friend who you know doesn't like their job, or send that to that other friend who you know could do better thinking about how to maximize their resume, their bio. Send it to all the folks who need to hear that they can be proud of and amplify who they are and how they add value to get that next opportunity. And I will see you when I see you. Stand by your brand. Bye, y'all.